I'm going to do a quick video. I'm going to stay a little quiet because Mina's sleeping right now. Um, so this is or Friday, January 13th. It's going to be Saturday pretty soon. I didn't make a video for Wednesday or Thursday, so I'm going to do that now. Basically, that day was kind of split up in 2 days. I had lab on Thursday, but lecture on Wednesday. So I had lecture and then lab the next day. Um, but they didn't actually go together. In lecture, we talked about speakers, and we discussed speakers. So we're going to go over what we checked out with the speaker PowerPoint and all that first, and then we're going to talk about lecture. Or lab, sorry, I'm tired. As you can tell, I had a full day today. So yeah, lecture first, we'll cover that, and then we're going to talk about what we did in lab, which was kind of cool. So lecture on Wednesday, we discussed, like I said, speakers, and I have my PowerPoint slides right here. Okay, so let's see. So one of the big things about the PowerPoints in this class is that there are lots of pictures. I mean, there are lots and lots of pictures, and just showing off a bunch of crazy stuff. So I mean, there are a lot of slides with information, but there are also a lot of slides with pictures. And the PowerPoint that I have actually is not the same one that my instructor has. The one that my instructor used had a lot more pictures in it, but the one that I have here on my computer is a lot more to the point. And so we're just going to read through this. So the first slide here talks about output transducers, which are basically translates to speakers. We have a couple different types. We have electromagnetic, piezoelectric, electromechanical. There's also there's a couple more. I wrote them down in my notebook. There's two more types. I can't remember what they are. But the most common is electromagnetic. It's the most popular, and it is the most flexible. And they do sound really good, actually. It wouldn't be the most popular for no reason if they didn't. Actually, 90% of the output transducers used in today's sound reinforcement systems are electromagnetic. I know it's a mouthful, but that's what the slide says here. And it can be used across the entire frequency range, which is pretty cool. Cone drivers are also a part of that. Normally, cone drivers come from 10 inches to 18. Those are the most popular, but you can get some special made. We also talked about the different parts of a speaker or a cone driver, to be more specific. So you can look into cone drivers if you like. And we've got a diagram here that shows, the dust dome, the coil form, the cone itself, this thing called the surround, the frame, the voice coil, your magnetic, or your actual magnet, the magnetic gap, the front plate, all the different pieces of the speaker. And then we went into compression drivers, which are usually, well, pretty much always going to be more specific for the higher frequencies, because those are your smaller diameter speakers. Usually, I think 1 to 2 inches is the most common size, and it's going to be attached to a horn of some type. Yeah, they must be used with horns to be able to heard. And they have high efficiency but low power handling. So that's one thing to keep in mind about the compression drivers. And the horns on those do two very important jobs. It amplifies the sound coming out of the compression driver, and it also controls the dispersion of that sound energy, so it directs it wherever you want it to go. We talked about speaker specs, so you can look into frequency response to speakers, power, which basically your program versus peak. Usually what you're going to find if you go out to buy speakers, you'll find some big number, but it'll say something like 2,000 watts peak, and that basically that means it's kind of for hype. It's just to hype the speaker up. And peak is kind of exactly what it sounds like. That's usually for transient noises only. So like say, I don't know, your drummer goes crazy for a second and really hits the snare drum really hard, and it puts out a lot. Well, that speaker is going to be able to put out 2,000 watts of the red for a short period of time. So what you want to look for is your watts, your amount of watts in RMS. So look for your RMS because that's your true like nominal speaker output. Like the speakers I have here in the house that I use for my TV actually, they only go up to 150 watts RMS. So I looked into that today while we were discussing amplifiers actually, which we'll get to that in the next video. But yeah, you should check out the program versus peak. Also the sensitivity and impedance of the speakers, which impedance is basically your resistance. It's nothing too complicated. We discussed speaker cabinets. The original types were sealed boxes, and today there are two main styles. You have your front-loaded and your horn-loaded. Front-loaded speakers, the cone drivers are mounted up front, and there's no pattern control. And also high drivers are always in horns because they are easy to control. Horn-loaded speakers are cone drivers as well. The cabinet is able to focus the majority of its sound down to 2 to 300 hertz, and also it has the ability to focus sound in more volume. Horns naturally amplify the sound to make it louder. So horn-loaded speakers look kind of funny though, I think. Basically there's three main ways to wire a speaker. I have parallel, series, and then series/parallel, which is basically a combination of the first two, obviously. And power requirements will always add up regardless of how you wire everything. So all your ohms and watts and all that kind of stuff, it's always going to end up coming out the same. How you handle those numbers might be a little different, but you never lose energy. You're always going to be using all the energy that you put out into it. And then at the end there's just some diagrams of what those different wiring situations look like. So the speaker lecture wasn't bad. It was pretty cool, I guess. I mean, we talked about the live speakers, and that right there, what we just went over was like the core basis of everything. But like I said, we looked at tons of pictures and tons of different types and brands and designs and everything. We also discussed phase that day because phase issues are really bad when you start to stack a lot of speakers up on each other. But let's go ahead and move on to the lab that day. The lab, it was kind of funny. I was supposed to have lab on 5 o'clock on Thursday, and I made the mistake of not looking at my schedule close enough, and I went back to the classroom because that's where I thought the lab was. So I'll make it a point to note that every lab that I've had 4 labs to this point. I know we're talking about the 3rd lab, but at this very point in time I've had 4 labs, and they've all been in 4 different locations. Rather interesting. Anyway, so I'm sitting in the classroom, 5 o'clock rolls around, nobody shows up, so I'm like, alright, well, it must start at 5:15 then, And so I wait, and I'm just looking online at stuff, 5:15 rolls around, nobody shows up, so I'm like, alright, this is strange. So I finally went and checked Propeller, and I saw that I was supposed to be in room, or FS4F101, which is a computer lab, and I looked up at the lab tech that was sitting in the room with me, and I was like, this isn't room 101, is it? And he was like, that'd be a no. He was like, what group are you in? So he showed me where to go and everything, and I made it to the actual lab room that I was supposed to be in, which it was right next door to where it was, and the lab tech that was in there was real cool. He was like, hey, no problem, man, He's like, I'll sign you in. So that was nice, and he basically, for the first half of lab that night, he was really just giving us advice. I mean, the lab tech that night he was awesome. Apparently he marched Santa Clara Vanguard. He was a snare drum player in SCV for 5 years back in the late 80s, I do believe. But I mean, what are the chances? I mean, this dude marched drum corps for, I think he said 5 years. And it happened to be SCV, which is ridiculous. And so I'm freaking out when when he mentioned that he marched, and I'm like, well, I need to talk to you, so maybe we can chop out or something. So I'm freaking out, and he's giving all these awesome stories and just advice about what to do and how to go about things when we get done here at school. Because he said don't be opposed to doing freelance stuff, because as audio guys, that's probably what we're going to be doing a lot of. I'm aiming and I'm trying to do my best to work in some big studio somewhere. Who knows? But I mean, I don't think that doing freelance stuff would be bad at all. I think it'd be pretty fun and just be a challenge to keep finding work and stuff. So yeah, he showed us all these magazines, and basically there's a list of like 15 different magazines that I'm going to subscribe to, and they'll send them in the mail for free, which is pretty cool. Or even an electronic version, which is really nice. But yeah, all the magazines are free, which is pretty cool if you ask me. And he put my email on a list and sent it out to me, and so I have the links to all the websites that I can sign up for them. And I've been meaning to do that. And so we took a break for a nice half hour, and then we came back and we actually did what we were went to do. And it was the reason he gave us, like, I wouldn't say it's a lecture, but he was just giving us advice and just being real with us for a little bit. The reason he did that was, one, because he was looking out for us. He wants us to get our money's worth. And two, that particular lab was really short. We worked in a program called Star Draw, I think is what it was. And basically it's this program that live guys will use to make signal flow charts of all their stuff, all the gear that they have to use. And the program has, like, they acquired all the rights and licensing to use diagrams of, like, all the different models of all the different manufacturers and brands of all the live gear. So we've got, I'm talking effect gear, racks, amplifiers, speakers, monitor wedges. It's crazy. It's got hundreds and thousands of different things that you can use in there to basically set it up exactly how it's going to be for real. And I've got my papers over here that we printed off. So hold on, give me a second. So check this out. We had to draw these things in the program and learn how to type in it and wire everything together. But basically, we put together, this was the first one. If you can see here, we put together a front of house console area. We got the big mixer board and our different rack gear and stuff on the sides. And then we put together what it's going to look like from the crossover out into our speakers, what amps we used. And it was really to get us used to using the program. So like the amps that we used didn't really match up with the speakers, but that wasn't the point of the lab. We're going to learn that, I think, this coming week, of how to match amplifiers and speakers. And then we did the same thing with the monitor console right there. There were different mix outs. And feel free to pause the video if you want to check it out. We also did this here. So the monitor signal flow. So yeah, it's pretty cool. We got to print out our thing and everything. That was really nice. And this is supposed to, like, we're supposed to recreate this and do it again in the program for the practical, I do believe. So they let us print these off so we could study, which was really nice. And everywhere that it says like watts and ohms, we're actually going to have to write in how many watts and ohms it has. And also the names, like you see here, it says like speakers individual. We're actually going to have to write the name of the speaker and how many watts and ohms and stuff that they have. So yeah, that was really nice. And then after that, we printed off everything and got out of there. It was pretty short, pretty quick, pretty easy, no doubt. So thanks for tuning in. Join me in the next video where we are going to discuss the amplifier lecture and the monitor lab, which was a lot of fun. That was earlier today on Friday. So I can't wait to share my experiences with you. Hopefully you're digging it. Any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Full Sail's pretty cool place. I like it. So I will see you in the next video.